Could Chris Sabin, along with Alex Shelley, soon to be returning to Impact Wrestling? Now, is there anyone in Impact Wrestling history or TNA history or whatever that's done nearly as much as Chris Sabin? There aren't many. Now, we spoke about this a few days ago about who the mystery fourth guy could be at the Slammiversary main event. Of course, the Fatal 4-Way match for the Impact World Championship. And a lot of people have been speculating when it comes to EC3, Eric Young, Heath Slater, Gallows and Anderson. You name it, we've spoken about it here on the channel. Chris Sabin, though, is a name that some people maybe have overlooked, or maybe some people just it isn't on the radar right now. But Chris Sabin, let's just go through his accomplishments, right, in Impact Wrestling and TNA history, because they just read like a who's who. Former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, defeated Bully Ray for the championship in 2013. Former TNA World Tag Team Champion with Alex Shelley as part of the Motor City Machine Guns, one of my favourite tag teams, not just in TNA or Impact Wrestling history, but in wrestling history in general. I think they were so innovative, and you look back at most tag teams now, that's how everyone works now. You know, people can criticize the Young Bucks, and I know that the Motor City Machine Guns actually did work with the Young Bucks, then known as Generation Me, in TNA, and they had some fantastic matches. But their influence on the likes of the Young Bucks is there to be seen, obviously, like along with the likes of the Hardy Boys, etc. But other accomplishments that Chris Sabin has done in Impact Wrestling: he's a former TNA X Division champion, an 8-time X Division champion, former Super X Cup winner, World X Cup winner in 2004 and 2006, Gauntlet for the Gold Tag Team winner in 2008 with Alex Shelley, and the 6th ever TNA Triple Crown champion. Is there anything he hasn't done in TNA? The answer is no. He has done it all in TNA. He is one of those people that, to me, there's a group of people, isn't there? And I know people are going to say TNA original. That's a term that gets thrown around quite a lot. But there's a group of people that are just so widely associated with TNA and Impact Wrestling for me, and Chris Sabin lands on that list. I think of people when I think of the core TNA people. I think obviously like Jeff Jarrett, but I think of Abyss, Chris Sabin, Bobby Roode, James Storm. Those people that TNA made, Eric Young, of course. Those are people that TNA made. They made their career there. They're, to me, always going to be known as Impact Wrestling guys or TNA guys, regardless if they have gone to the WWE or they are currently signed with the WWE. In the case of Robert Roode or even Abyss in a producer role, they're just Impact Wrestling guys. That's where I know them from. That's where they made their career. That's where they made their name, and that's, I don't want to say it's the reason for their success, because it isn't, but it's the bedrock of their success of their wrestling career. It's where I would consider their home to be. Other achievements also, which I think I'd be remiss if we didn't mention when it comes to Chris Sabin. Ring of Honor as well. He worked with Ring of Honor as recently up to of January of this year. Former Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champion one time with Alex Shelley as part of the Motor City Machine Guns, of course. And New Japan Pro Wrestling does have an achievement with them as well. A former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champion with Alex Shelley in the past. This was also during his run with TNA at the time. This is when TNA and New Japan Pro Wrestling did have a deal together, in which we saw the Motor City Machine Guns become, as mentioned there, the Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. Team 3D actually became the IWGP Tag Team Champions. There was actually a switch to the British Invasion as the IWGP Tag Team Champions during that time. But then there was this weird thing. Was it recognized? It wasn't recognized for a long time. I believe it is actually recognized now in terms of the championship lineage, but for a really long period of time it wasn't, because New Japan still, I mean, to this day, I think it's been smoothed over a bit, but they had heat with Impact for the longest time, and that's a Vince Russo problem there. But you think they had a Okada in the company, and they didn't use him. How can you misuse someone like Okada? It's just it's madness, that one. But we're talking about Chris Sabin. So Chris Sabin, could he soon be returning to Impact Wrestling? We know his history with the company, and we know obviously a lot of people are soon to be returning to Impact Wrestling. It's a company, as I've mentioned so many times now, has so much buzz and so much excitement around it, whether it is bringing in new talent, bringing back old talent, bringing back old gimmicks, old groups, whether it comes to the Aces and Eights. We'll touch on that in a second. It's a very exciting time this Saturday at the time of recording is Slammiversary. We know we're going to have a former Impact World Champion returning. He's going to be bringing friends with him, which has got people talking about Chris Sabin. So what And why do people think is Chris Sabin going to be returning to Impact Wrestling in the near future? Well, a story came out in March that former TNA World Heavyweight Champion Chris Sabin would be working as a producer/agent at a set of Impact Wrestling tapings in March in St. Clair's College in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. That was a report from PW Insider. Now, prior to that, Chris Sabin had worked recently with Ring of Honor, but once his deal expired, he didn't sign a new deal. This is largely because Chris Sabin had suffered a complete ACL tear at the Ring of Honor television tapings in January, on January 12th, in a six-way match against Shane Taylor, Luchasaurus, Rhett Titus, Kenny King, and Flip Gordon. At the time, and again, this goes back in to March, Chris Sabin had yet to have surgery on the injury. He, of course, his career's just been hampered when it comes to those knees, isn't it? He's torn the ACL in both knees several times. When he came back initially to Impact Wrestling, when he won that TNA World Heavyweight Championship against Bully Ray in 2013, he had largely been on the shelf for like a year and a half because he torn the ACL in one knee, came back and then tore, or he might have even been rehabbing and tore the ACL in the other knee. Just horrible history when it comes to Chris Sabin and those knees. And the problem is, once you tear your ACL, it's more likely to tear again after that. And he's just had horrible luck when it comes to those knee injuries. So I really do feel for him there. Now, as that report stated at the time, and this was in March, he had yet to have surgery on it. Now, we have seen people in the past work with torn ACLs. It's a strange one, pro wrestling. It's a very strange game because in any other form of contact sport, you tear your ACL, you have surgery, you're on the shelf 6-9 months. That's just how it works. Pro wrestling being pro wrestling, you can tear your ACL and somehow you can actually work around it. It is madness. Eventually you have to get it fixed. But just because you tear your ACL doesn't necessarily mean you have to go get surgery straight away. Now, it did mention there that he'd completely torn the ACL, which would lend me to think it's going to be impossible for him to work. But I believe it was Jeff Hardy a couple of years ago. He tore ACL in his knee and then worked around it for the longest time until last year. It was when it got so bad he had to get the surgery on it, which is why he spent so long on the shelf. So just because he has torn his ACL there, Chris Sabin doesn't completely rule him out of a return right now, but it does make it less likely, in my opinion. Now, he also last year, did a guest trainer spot at the WWE Performance Center. Remember that, seeing it all on WWE social media. They do this quite a lot, WWE. They get former talents or legendary talents or well-known talents to come in just for a week or so. It's got a multi-pronged purpose, realistically. There's several reasons, to be honest. One, it's to get a bit of buzz on social media. They did it with Chris Sabin there to get people going, oh, WWE, Chris Sabin. Two, it's obviously to share the knowledge. Obviously, you've got the people that work at the Performance Center, but the more minds you can bring in and the more wisdom you can pass on to these youngsters, the better. And three, it's to get a closer look at Chris Sabin. It's for him to come in. They can see how good he is at the producer role or the trainer role or the coach role there at the Performance Center. If he does a good job, maybe they'll ask him back a few months later. They might have a permanent spot for him if a spot comes up. That's why they do it. But ever since then, he has been working with Impact Wrestling in a producer role. Many people just speculated that this was going to be Chris Sabin's role with Impact Wrestling going forward because of the knee injury that he'd yet to get fixed, and also because, like I said, of the knee injuries he's had throughout his career. It was more likely he was going to be taking a backstage role because can his body hold up to the rigors of competing in the ring? However, that all changed around May time, because around May, I actually have the tweet in front of me. It was on May 13th, 2020. Chris Sabin sent out an intriguing tweet that seems to imply that he was closer than ever to a return to the ring after this ACL injury, and the return will be happening inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. The tweet said, quote, "The day shall soon come when I say, watch me wrestle tonight on Impact Wrestling," end quote. Got a lot of people excited, myself included. Chris Sabin getting back in the ring, that's exciting, but most importantly, Chris Sabin getting back to an Impact Wrestling ring. It's his home. It's where everyone knows Chris Sabin the best. It's where everyone knows what he can do in the ring. He's well respected there. And this goes back to a couple of things I've been saying about the likes of EC3 and Eric Young. when you're so synonymous with a company like an Impact Wrestling, and even more so, I would say, with a Chris Sabin here, is that he spent 80% of his career in that company. They have so much footage of Chris Sabin there. Every big achievement that he's done, the majority of it has been in Impact Wrestling, and Impact Wrestling has the rights and the footage to all of that. So if Chris Sabin was to go back or get back in the ring with Impact Wrestling, think of the promo packages, think of the hype packages, and most importantly, think of the story that they can tell about Chris Sabin's return to the ring there, right? Because they've got it all. They can present it however they want. They can hype it up as big as they want. They can make Chris Sabin look like an absolute star that he just wouldn't be able to look like in any other company. If Chris Sabin shows up in NXT, people go, oh, Chris Sabin does a lot outside of the WWE on the independent scene for years. That's probably what they'll say. That's what they always say when people come in. But if he comes back to an Impact Wrestling ring, they've got all of these promos they can show. That, oh, look at this, Chris Sabin. This is when he won the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. This is when he won the X Division Championship. This is when he did this. This is when he did that. Remember the Motor City Machine Guns. Remember the matches they had with Beer Money. Remember the match they had with the Young Bucks. They can even drop the Young Bucks name in there as well. There is so much that they can do, Impact Wrestling, because of the history that Chris Sabin has with the company that he just wouldn't be able to do anywhere else. So that tweet is incredibly, incredibly exciting. But there's more. There's more, and there's more news where that comes from. So the news about Chris Sabin putting out that tweet kind of came out of the blue for many. But it did get a few responses from people in the know in Impact Wrestling. One being the Impact Wrestling star Darga, who is the fiance of Tessa Blanchard, I believe. We haven't seen him for a while because of the travel restrictions. Who knows if we're going to see him going forward now that Tessa Blanchard is no longer with the company. But the most important response to that tweet wasn't from Dargo. It was actually from Impact Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore, who replied, quote, "Love to see that," end quote. They're teasing. I think what we're going to see here when it comes to Chris Sabin and his future of Impact Wrestling is that when he's medically healthy and he's fit and healthy to do so, I think he's going to come back. I think it's a pretty much a done deal and a sure thing. He's already working behind the scenes. It's just the next step of when he does return to the ring. Even though he's had the injuries, there's still so much that he can offer. There's still much that he can do for the company, and there's still a desire there, especially from my point of view. I don't know about yours. You can let me know in the comment section below. There's still a massive desire for me to see Chris Sabin work inside of an Impact Wrestling ring again. That's his home. That is his home. Whether it is in a singles role, whether it's in a tag role, whether it's in the X Division, wherever. Now, I speak there about the tag division. Most fans reading this, hearing this, or whatever, are chomping at the bit to see him reunite with Alex Shelley, right? Have the Motor City Machine Guns back in their home, where they're best known, back in Impact Wrestling. Now, Alex Shelley did make his return to pro wrestling last July after a 1-year sabbatical working with Ring of Honor. He also had a brief stint in NXT in January as part of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, working with Kushida, the Time Splitters, coming back together. I think many people thought at the time this was going to be the start of maybe not a run completely for Alex Shelley, but more of a tag team run for Kushida going forward in NXT, and nothing happened. It was a one-off appearance. It was just, that's what it was. It was a Time Splitters reunion. They were reuniting the team from New Japan, and they lost, which surprised a lot of people, myself included, because it felt so strange when that whole Alex Shelley and Kushida thing came back, because the longest time it was Kushida's competing in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Who's going to be his partner? Who is Kushida going to team up with? And a lot of people speculated and hoped, because of the history there, that it was going to be Alex Shelley. Everyone was, there's no way they'll do it. And they did it. They announced it. They said the Time Splitters are coming back. Kushida, Alex Shelley, everyone went, they're winning this thing, right? They're at least getting to the final. And then they lost. First round, done. And everyone was like, oh, okay. And that's all it was. It was a one-off. I guess it was just to get a bit of buzz on social media, or maybe hopefully in the ratings or something like that, but that's all it was. So Alex Shelley isn't with WWE or anything like that. Alex Shelley even commented on Chris Sabin's tweet in May, suggesting that Chris Sabin should come and train alongside him too. So again, they're hyping it up. But it goes further than that, because TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever they were or are at the time, they had actually planned a Motor City Machine Gun reunion for earlier this year. Now, I don't know how many people know this or not, but those comments by Alex Shelley actually meant a lot more, because the plan was for them to do something in April. Alex Shelley revealed that he was supposed to reunite with Chris Sabin as the Motor City Machine Guns for Impact Wrestling's TNA There's No Place Like Home special that was due to have occurred during this year's WrestleMania week in Tampa, prior to the event, of course, being cancelled with COVID-19. Now, for those who aren't aware of this event, this was an event that actually had quite a lot of buzz earlier this year. Impact Wrestling announced that they were going to be doing like a TNA style homecoming show, a TNA reunion show. They were going to embrace their past. They were going to bring back Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, and they were going to delve into their past, delve into their archives, and bring back a bunch of TNA originals, a bunch of TNA wrestlers, TNA gimmicks, and all of that stuff for a show over WrestleMania weekend in Orlando, Florida. It was going to be called TNA There's No Place Like Home. People that were announced for it were the likes of Wildcat Chris Harris. We had the Aces and Eights, Mr. Anson and D'Lo Brown there. Chris Sabin, I believe, was actually announced for it. He had been previously announced for the event, but the Motor City Machine Gun news was kept secret at the time. That was due to be a surprise at the event, a surprise to get a bit of buzz on social media and get people talking. But it didn't happen, of course, because the world went crazy and decided to end. So those plans, most assumed, had been scrapped, but that's not the case. They haven't exactly been scrapped. I think they've been postponed, and we are starting to see this Impact Wrestling embracing the past kind of nature very, very soon when it comes to TNA and Impact Wrestling. You think of all that Chris Sabin could do in Impact Wrestling right now. Someone of Chris Sabin's caliber, he would just easily fit into a program with anyone right now on the Impact Wrestling roster. And we've spoken quite at length now on this channel about people potentially coming in to Impact Wrestling, who could be coming in, when could they be coming in. Obviously, all of these ex-WWE stars, this is the week that they've all been teasing, whether it's the July 18th date that so many people have been teasing on social media, the likes of Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins, etc. Some people speculating, of course, that the WWE non-compete clause for the guys that did get released in April actually expires on July 15th, not July 18th. It's pretty much confirmed we're going to see Luke Gallows and Kyle Anderson, if not at Slammiversary, then at the following Impact Wrestling episode on next Tuesday. It's a really exciting time, but someone of the caliber of Chris Sabin, his history with the company, all that he's done with Impact Wrestling, could just easily fit so well into a program with anyone right now on the roster, whether they're already on the roster or they're going to be on their way in the near future. And this goes from top to bottom of the card, really, because this could be in the TNA World Heavyweight Championship picture, right? Moose at the moment has been going around holding the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, the old design of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. He's called himself the real world champion. This is what I mentioned previously about Impact Wrestling embracing the past, not being scared of their TNA roots, and bringing that back. You've got the Impact World Championship. That's the main event of Slammiversary. But Moose, whilst we've had all this controversy with Tessa Blanchard not coming in, the Impact World Championship being vacated, all of this stuff, Moose has been going around with the TNA World Heavyweight Championship and calling himself the real world champion, and been doing a pretty damn good job doing it, I must say, and it's been a storyline that I've been fascinated in. Do I like that he's facing Tommy Dreamer at Slammiversary? I wish they could have done something better, to be honest. I think it would have been great if, like, here we go now, with Chris Sabin. Chris Sabin is a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He held the exact same bout in 2013 when he defeated Bully Ray for the championship. I think, personally, it would have been a much funner thing if Moose had said, you know what, at Slammiversary, the whole event is called Slammiversary. It's an anniversary of the company's history. Now, I'm holding the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. I'm calling myself the real world champion. I'm bringing back TNA to Impact Wrestling. I'm not afraid of the past because I am its future. Instead, I offer an open challenge to a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion or a former TNA original to come back to the company and challenge me for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. I think that would have been a lot more fun. It would have got a lot of people guessing. Is it similar to the main event in the sense that you've got a mystery competitor there and you could also have an open challenge? Yes, but I don't think it really matters, to be honest. I think the more people that you can get talking about Impact Wrestling right now, the more buzz that you can create about the company right now, the more buzz you can make about Slammiversary right now, the better. And I think doing that would have been a real fun way of embracing the past. But that's not what we're going to get at Slammiversary. Instead, we're going to get Moose versus Tommy Dreamer for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. I have no doubts in my mind that Moose will retain that. I would be, quite frankly, stunned if Tommy Dreamer wins that. And if anything, I hope that Moose beats him quite convincingly and we have a post-match angle to set up something a bit more substantial. And it's no disrespect to Tommy Dreamer, I'm just not sure that's the spot he should really be in right now. But at least I guess Moose is going to be winning that one. But, like I mentioned, Chris Sabin, he's a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He's held that version of the bout in 2013. Why not come back and face Moose? Moose holds that title right now. He's calling himself the real World Championship. He can feud with Moose over the prestige of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, a championship which Sabin once held. It'd be a really fun way, and it'd be a really fun way, once again, of embracing the past. If they don't do that, what about the Impact World Tag Team Championship, specifically the Impact World Tag Team Champions of the North, Ethan Page and Josh Alexander? They are the best tag team in Impact Wrestling right now, one of the best tag teams in the world, in my opinion. The North, you know that they're good because they're getting people in WWE and AEW talking about them, trying to one day convince them to come over to the company. I think the North should stay exactly where they are right now. This is the best place for them, is Impact Wrestling. Now, I'm sure they would do great in AEW, but their AEW tag team division is the best AEW tag team. It's the best AEW is the best tag team division, rather, in the world right now. No tag team division comes absolutely close. Don't even bother going to WWE because they don't treat tag teams seriously. Regardless of what people will say, their tag teams, they've got great tag teams there, but it's not treated seriously. You'll be driving around golf carts, going bowling, and throwing axes in about 10 minutes, and who knows what the North will be doing. Honestly, they'd be dressed up as a Mountie in about 10 minutes. We're going to have Mountie tag teams. That's exactly what they would be. So they might as well stay away, as far away from WWE as possible. Stay with Impact Wrestling. That's where they're working right now. That's where they're getting the most attention right now. And let's build that tag team division. We know that Gallows and Anderson are coming in. So likely we're going to have a North versus Gallows and Anderson feud. That's going to be great. But also, who do you add to that tag team division to even increase the depth even more? The Motor City Machine Guns. That is brilliant, isn't it? They've got this, the North have this very public love of the TNA era of Impact Wrestling. It would almost be fitting for TNA legends and almost TNA icons like the Motor City Machine Guns to return to face the North. I think that match would be so much fun. Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, they can still go. They can have a match with a broom. Their matches in TNA history are just great. I mentioned earlier, their matches with the likes of Beer Money were great. Their matches with Generation Me, the Young Bucks, were great. Even their matches they had with Team 3D were great. There was a period of time, I believe it was 2010, that the Motor City Machine Guns were the ones to actually retire Team 3D in Impact Wrestling. They faced him. I don't know the exact event off the top of my head. If I had to take a guess, I believe it's Turning Point 2010. I might be wrong there. But I believe it's like Turning Point of 2010. And it was Team 3D versus the Motor City Machine Guns. And I believe it was the case of Team 3D saying if we don't win, we're going to retire. Most people assumed that Team 3D were going to win. They hit the 3D. Everyone thinks, right, that's game over. And they kick out. And the Motor City Machine Guns beat them. On the following Impact, we're going to have Team 3D retire. Bully Ray attacks Devon, gives birth to the Bully Ray character, who later becomes TNA World Heavyweight Champion, leader of the Aces and Eights, synonymous with Impact Wrestling, the biggest singles run and push of his career. It's just brilliant. So thank the Motor City Machine Guns for the Aces and Eights right there. So I'd love to see them return to the tag team division in Impact Wrestling. I think it would be great. Now, we know that a former Impact World Champion is returning at Slammiversary and he's bringing friends with him. Do I think that's Chris Sabin? I don't think it is, to be honest. I still think that the final guy appearing in the Slammiversary four-way match for the Impact World Championship, I still think it's EC3. But I think Chris Sabin coming back is pretty much a lock at this point. It's just a case of when he's healthy and safe to do so. As I mentioned, he's had the knee injuries. I don't know as of yet if he has had surgery or during the time of lockdown, during the time of quarantine, he's just been rehabbing the hell out of it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter rather than the former. But if he's coming back, once again, it's a great addition to the roster. It's a great addition to the roster. It keeps going this theme of Impact Wrestling embracing the past, not being scared of their TNA roots. The stink has worn off, I think, of TNA now. Yes, you have the history of the bad checks and the bad creative and the Vince Russo and the Dixie Carter and the politics and all of that stuff. That happened. You can't run away from it forever. But I think Impact Wrestling have done a great job in distancing themselves so far from that for a long time that the brand has recovered now. Impact Wrestling's Impact Wrestling. Yes, older fans like myself will probably still call it TNA because it's a Freudian slip at this point. But they're not TNA anymore. They're Impact Wrestling. They're their own thing. Now they have the opportunity to really embrace that past and go back to it and use what is probably their most valuable asset now, which is their tape library, which is their history. They've got the last matches of the likes of Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and who else? Randy Savage, Scott Hall had their final match in Impact Wrestling. That's crazy. They've got that, and they should be using that because it's the most valuable thing that the company has right now. So Chris Sabin coming back, I think, is a given. It's just a case of what he does. Does he face Moose for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship? Does he go back to the X Division? He's an 8-time X Division champion. I've mentioned a few times that I think that that's a point in where I think Impact Wrestling needs to refocus. The X Division is synonymous with Impact Wrestling. Some of the best matches of all time coming in that X Division when it comes to AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels. And I think they've realised over time that that division just had so much great talent at the time. It's quite hard to replicate that. But having a Chris Sabin comes back, he can help elevate that division once again. I think they need to make that division a selling point of Impact Wrestling once again. And I think bringing back someone like a Chris Sabin certainly does that. Or, like I said, he can come back and work with Alex Shelley. They can both come back to Impact Wrestling, their home, and they can help make that great tag team division in Impact Wrestling even better by joining the likes of Gallows and Anson, perhaps Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder too. You got the North, Reno Scum, and who knows, maybe even Aces and Eights. Now, Aces and Eights, Chris Sabin feuded with Aces and Eights for a long time in 2013. As I mentioned, he was the one to defeat Bully Ray for the Impact World Championship, or TNA World Heavyweight Championship at the time. Bully Ray eventually defeated him once again, but he has that rivalry with Aces and Eights. We know that Aces and Eights are likely to be returning to Impact Wrestling in the near future. Bring back Chris Sabin as well. You've got a rivalry built in there. There is so much that Chris Sabin can do right now. And most importantly, there's so much that Chris Sabin can offer the company right now, whether it is in a producer role, which he's already doing, or whether it's in the ring, in the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, in the X Division, tag team with Alex Shelley, feuding with Aces and Eights, or just that TNA, there's no place like home. Let's do the event anyway, put it on Access TV, do that kind of thing. So there is so much for Chris Sabin to do, and I'm really excited because I think it's going to happen in the near future. But of course, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts? Would you like to see Chris Sabin return to Impact Wrestling in the near future? When do you think he will return? Do you think he will return? What division would you like to see him compete in? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to have a chat with you guys down there. I really enjoy interacting with all of you guys. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. We're getting closer and closer to 400 subscribers. It's been absolutely crazy the last few weeks how much the channel has grown, so I really appreciate that. The more you subscribe, the more videos I'll put out, and once we get to that 1,000 subscriber number, we'll be able to do live streams of Impact Wrestling, live streams of pay-per-views like Slammiversary, like Raw, like SmackDown, like NXT, all of that good stuff. So the quicker we get there, the better the content is going to be, I really promise. Be sure to follow us also on our social media platforms. They're on the screen right now. It's at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.